Greetings. Hi, Lynn. Greetings
Hello.
and welcome to the Vet Partners Town Hall Brief, where we share rich information in a short amount of time. Now, before we get started, I've got a few things to share. First of all, thank you so much to our sponsors. We rely on your support so much and we appreciate your support, so thank you so much. Next, for the listening experience, all the lines will be muted so we may focus on our presenter for the day. So we will also want to stay on mute until the end of the presentation, where we'll open up the lines and open up for questions. If whatever questions we don't get to on this particular, during the brief, we will make sure they get answered afterwards. Today's topic, COVID-19 survival guide, what life is like as a veterinarian right now, and how consultants and service providers can help. Today, we'll learn how COVID-19 is impacting veterinary practices from the perspective of a practice owner who is experiencing this daily. Now about our presenter. Dr. Michele Drake is the owner of the Drake Center in Encinitas, California, and has been a proven leader for over 20 years in practice. She has served on several boards. Those would include AHA and Novartis, and is a featured contributor for several publications. The Drake Center has been voted the #1 veterinary practice in San Diego for 8 consecutive years. Unbelievable, 8 consecutive years. Dr. Drake will be joined by CEO of Genius Vets, Harley Orion. Harley Orion will join us for a discussion, and we're looking forward to it. So thank you both so much for being here. The floor is all yours.
Great, thank you so much, Deb, and thanks to everybody on the Vet Partners team, Elizabeth and everyone. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. And thank you to everybody that's joining us today on the webinar. We're really glad to be here. We're glad to be a part of this group. At Genius Vets, our mission is to help independent veterinary practices thrive and to create smarter connections between pet owners and their local veterinarians. So I'm actually mostly here to host and facilitate. Dr. Drake will be doing most of the talking today. As you know, these are unprecedented times, and especially for the veterinary profession. And so we spoke to Elizabeth about doing a webinar where Dr. Drake can share a little of what it's like to run a veterinary practice today. We believe this is going to be really valuable just to help anyone who is serving the veterinary profession to better understand what their day-to-day experience is like, because it is truly unique and unlike anything that these folks have been through before. So she's also going to share some tips that you can use right now with your clientele, things that she's been doing in her practice that have really helped, and that hopefully you can pass those along as well to add some value to folks you're working with. So I think, Deb, thank you so much for the intro. I think you did a great job of outlining Dr. Drake's background, but truly she's my co-founder in Genius Vets, and truly was the veterinarian to my pets for many years, and just one of the best in the profession. So I know we can learn a lot from her. So thanks so much, Dr. Drake, and I'm gonna go ahead and give you the floor. So the first section we want to talk about is knowing your audience and just some of the big picture things that are going on for a practice owner today.
Yeah, so this has been just like an incredibly, stressful time for veterinarians. Hey, can you guys hear that drilling right now?
Yeah.
Is that pretty crazy loud?
It's all right.
Okay, I'll say I can run out there and tell them they need to stop that real quick. Hey, let me just do that really quick.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, well,
things happen.
I can take this
Harley.
for a moment until Dr. Drake is back. So as she said, it's an incredibly difficult time for practice owners. They're really challenged and even traumatized. I think that's a fair way to describe the feeling that they have. So
it's like
okay,
my daily rent, like always something going on, right? So, since the get-go of this, it has truly been like a whirlwind of just like the trauma of experience. I think everyone's had a personal experience, and we have to keep that in mind. Our staff has all had their own personal experience of this and fears and worries, and our own big health, you know, the United States health system doesn't really understand this. So we're constantly having to, you know, take in information from the AVMA, the CDC, you know, OSHA, whatever the organizations are, and continue to run our businesses through this. And everyone was telling us, you know, keep paying your staff. The first messaging was keep paying your staff, but oh yeah, don't do any business. And I was like, exactly how does that work out for a small business and our cash flow? I mean, those are just some of the many things in addition to keeping ourselves and our staff and our clients safe, you know, all these things that we had to deal with, and just taking in so much information and having to make so many decisions while running a small business was truly has been a traumatic experience. Probably one of the hardest things I've ever been through as a business owner, and I have owned my practice for more than 25 years. And we were a great system going into this. And now I feel like this is almost like a startup, honestly. We've had to reinvent so many areas of our business, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that as we go into this more. But I just think my goal for this would be for anyone who's a consultant right now to just really have an understanding of what the veterinarian is, so that you can be helpful to them and really use this time to build relationships and be supportive, because they are going to need you to help them through this, and they need you now. But it's especially important just to get an understanding. I think when you know where they're coming from, or know what they're experiencing as best as possible, you're going to be so much more helpful, and they're going to, you know, welcome you into their practices a lot more, I think.
Awesome. So Dr. Drake and I were talking about the 5 stages of COVID, and I think every practice has gone through these in some degree. Dr. Drake, maybe you could take us through kind of each of these stages and what that felt like for you, and how you see it happening today.
Yeah, so this is kind of funny. When Harley and I were talking about how we wanted to do this particular webinar, I just said, let's look at those 5 stages. And I think at first it was a combination of, hey, we'll get through this. You know, no one really thought in January that COVID was going to be a big deal, right? We just kind of thought it was a virus in China that was slowly oozing over. We might have to do some things. You know, things will get back to normal quickly, because that's what we were kind of being told and what we thought based on SARS, you know, a few years ago, what our experience was with that. And then, you know, it was this like almost like anger of like the initial, you know, information from the government was that we had to keep paying our employees, and no matter what. And there was no discussion about any relief for a business owner. Then the information coming out about PPP, and could you get these EIDL loans or the PPP loans? There was so much information to assimilate, but I think there was, you know, some shock and anger involved with that. Then, you know, the bargaining, can I get one of these loans? What do we do with these loans? Are they going to be forgivable? You know, which employees do we pay out? The ones that are just fearful of coming to work, the ones that have to stay home with their kids, you know, all these things of trying to understand these and run a practice at the same time. And then I think after we kind of got through the PPP and all the webinars we went to trying to understand that, it was sort of, you know, we were stuck with this reality of this isn't going to go away. We have to do business through this. And so many people lost staff for many different reasons. And many of us then about a month into it started to have an increase in business. And I've just been analyzing the heck out of why I am actually up 25% in my practice. And I'm in a very highly veterinarian up area. We have probably 4 times the number of veterinarians in my area that I should have in order to be a successful practice. And I'm up 25%. That's just unprecedented amounts of business. So I've had a decrease in staff because I had a couple people that had to leave, key people. I have now some people working remotely. I'm doing this curbside. I have an increase in business, and I'm having to hire new staff and train them through all of this. And I'll do all these different, you know, ways of doing business. So a little heavy stuff to deal with. And then the acceptance that, you know, I truly believe anytime there's a big challenge that we can all learn from it and be stronger on the other side, but we still have to get through it and do it well. And, you know, hopefully make sure all these new clients that we're able to take care of them, so that when the economy does possibly have a bad downturn, that we are still the practice that they look to for their veterinary needs. Awesome.
Thanks, Dr. Drake. And you know, your practice, you've really gone through these stages, and I really feel you guys are at an acceptance stage. You've adapted to the situation. You've found good solutions where you can. You're making it work, and there's not and you're not stuck. But I think what we've found in certainly as Genius Vets, we speak to practices all over the country, and we do hear that a lot of practices are sort of stuck in what you could call the anger or the depression stage, either still upset that this is happening and haven't really accepted it, or just depressed about the fact that this isn't going to blow over. It's going to be a long haul. Maybe you could speak to some of those places people get stuck.
Yeah, and I'm on a lot of the forums, the veterinary, the Facebook groups that are, which I'm sure some of you guys are too, maybe not, but the veterinary practice owners, it's got like 4,500 followers. And I continue to be really just sad for my profession of the things that these people talk about. They get really hung up on staffing issues and really hung up on client complaints. Like one client complaint can seem to just like, take them off track so much. And I don't know why they put so much energy into those things. But the biggest thing that I've come down to is that if you did not have a strong culture going into this is going to be all that much more difficult, like so much more. If you've not been a good communicator to your staff and showing them that you have this under control and you have plans and you're continuing to watch it and you're watching out for them and you're watching out how we're doing business and you're going to continue to pay them and you're going to continue to employ them. If you haven't been able to message that continually, it's just like culture or messaging or communication. Either you decide what your culture is or someone else in your staff is going to decide it for you. Either you decide what the communication and what the plan is for the practice, or someone else is going to make up these stories within the practice, and it may not be the one that you want to have happen. So communication has just been so critical. The amount of communication I'm doing with my staff has way exceeded what I've ever done before. We always would have a monthly staff meeting, and I have lots of little meetings now. The amount of emails, the amount of Zooms we're doing as a group, individual groups, is just critical for keeping all the changes that are occurring, gathering information from all the different staff members, and making decisions based on everybody's input has just been tremendously important for my practice. So again, the culture, I would say there are a lot of practices, I'd say most practices honestly did not have a good culture. And so I think there are ways that you guys and we can all help them by asking them, like, let's step outside the practice. Let's take a coffee break here, a Zoom break. And as a consultant, say, let me help you. Like, go ahead and let me know what are all the pain points you're having, and help them maybe figure out a good way to go back and like decide what kind of practice they want, get their staff's buy-in, and start there, because otherwise they're just putting out fires. And I find so many veterinarians that just constantly just put out fire, but they really never have an action plan of what they're trying to do and what they're trying to accomplish, and then sharing that with the staff and getting buy-in from the staff. So I find if there's any messaging, I think that consultants could provide, it would be that first, and then start to prioritize what are the needs within the practice, what are the things we need to give our staff, what are the tools they need in order to accomplish the good patient care that we have, especially now that most of us are doing a curbside or some format of that.
Awesome. Thanks, Dr. Drake. So we have a list of some of the things that we've come up with that, what consultants and service providers can do that works and what doesn't work so well. So here are some of the things that we've identified that practices are not looking for, like things that they don't want to see in terms of service providers. Maybe you could talk us through some of these things.
Yeah, again, I just think anyone calls right now the practice, it's almost a joke. Every veterinary practice is overrun with phone calls, and it's so much more now because of the curbside, which I'll talk to you about, something that we came up with in my practice. But no one wants a sales pitch right now, obviously. I think consultants, the best opportunity we have right now is, again, to use this time to build a relationship with the clients. And maybe some of them are going to need your services immediately. Some are going to need it down the road, but just really just being there as an advocate to help them through this transition of dealing with all the challenges of COVID and helping them to figure out how to make their practices stronger on the other side. So it's just really understanding who they are, being empathetic with that, and then trying to take baby steps to accomplish the goals they want to, achieve. So
Awesome.
Again, empathy. Sorry, go ahead, Harley.
Oh, no, it's great. I was just going to say, in terms of things that folks aren't looking for, I think what I've observed is business as usual type of communications can feel really tone deaf right now. So you have to acknowledge that the reality that they're living in is quite unusual, and you have to lead with that or you lose them, And I also think that it's important to recognize that some consultants that are, some of you on this call may have a service that's like directly associated with helping them to solve this problem that they're dealing with right now, in which case, great. Like, I'm sure that they'd be happy to hear from you. If you have a service that maybe isn't directly related to handling their overflow, their workload, their stress, their culture challenges, then I think just realizing that you're going to need to find a direction or a way to support them, that it may not be like the usual thing that you sell or deliver, but to come to the meeting with that practice and ask ask questions and learn what you can deliver that would be valuable to them at this time. And hopefully that's going to build that relationship for the future. So let's talk a little bit about what you can do to help TVMs get unstuck and what they are looking for.
Yeah, something for me whenever I go to say a meeting or go to listen to someone or have a salesperson in my office, the most important for me is that you know your audience. So if someone knows nothing about my practice or knows nothing about what I'm dealing with, you might as well just go ahead and turn around and leave. So I think that's really important for consultants and people that are, hoping to connect with practices, with products and such, would be to know your audience and understand the difficulties that they're dealing with right now. And then the things that you can do to be so helpful is, again, I think practitioners and owners get just stuck in all this minutia of things that they're dealing with because those are real things, but they're unable to step outside their practices and look at things from the outside and then make a plan and just keep plowing through that plan. And the plan will change all the time. It's changed many times, but just continue to spend some time every day on planning and organizing and messaging to your staff. That's so critical. And that's something I think that consultants can see from the outside and be really helpful with guiding veterinary owners and managers with that. Helping them prioritize what are the issues that are the biggest concern. So, from the get-go, like the number of phone calls in my practice increased by almost 200 a day with curbside. So I actually asked, Harley's like, Michelle, what can I do for you? I can see you guys are so busy. I said, help me with this phone call situation. So Harley, went off and interviewed 12 different texting companies. And we came up with a company called Zingle. That's a bot that basically when my clients arrive at my practice, they text the word arrived to our phone number. And it prompts a couple questions to find out, what they're here for, who they are, and what cone number they're at. And before my staff even gets online with them and says, hey, I see you just want some medicine, we'll be right out with it. Or you're here for your 2 o'clock appointment, we'll send someone right out to you. And that has dropped our phone calls by 150 to 200. That's a lot of phone calls to decrease. So we're still responding to the clients, but it's in a less time suck of a situation and much more like directly taking care of the client's issue without having to go through the whole phone system. So things like that are small, but actually big. So I knew my staff, we needed to take care of this phone situation. And that was something that I needed to give them some tools in order to help them. So paying attention to what their needs are and listening to your staff and gathering information and making decisions.
Awesome. Thanks. So
one more thing I just want to mention again, I think I mentioned in the beginning, but I just want everyone to understand that pretty much every small business, but certainly veterinarians, the only one I can really claim to know well, is it's like a startup right now. It truly is like running a startup business with everything that we're doing. So lots of moving parts and it's hard to just, always know which way to direct the ship.
Yeah, absolutely, Dr. Drake. And I think too that, if I can just, I'll just hazard a guess here. Most veterinarians typically did not get into the profession because they wanted to be in a startup that was ever changing with constantly new shifting needs and requirements, right? It's a stable profession. In some ways, it's been the same for 100 years, right? The technology changes, but the basics of the business haven't changed that much. So I would just say that I think there's a significant amount of like what you could call trauma associated with going from, hey, everything's stable, I've been doing this same business for 20 years, it's working great, it's feeding my family, I'm building value, to like, oh my God, what is going on? That's a really traumatic experience for a business owner, particularly if they've been in the business a long time and they're not used to that experience. So that, Dr. Drake, I think being, also being a co-founder in a startup, like you've gotten used to that type of thinking. I think a lot of practice owners are not as comfortable with that. So I think that's a place that, for the consultants out there, if you're part of a startup, if you're in a tech company and you have some of that skill set of like, hey, how to be flexible, how to remain calm when there's a lot of changes going on, those type of skills are really, really valuable to practice owners today because they never needed them before.
Yeah, for sure. And just, I think veterinarians in general, we move slow. I mean, we're very tried and true people. We're, really solid, loyal, all those good qualities, but this hecticness and constant change right now is hard for most of them. And it does inquire a lot of like big, broad thinking picture, but also specifics. I really have no doubts that good practices will be stronger on the other side of this. Things will change. I mean, it will be a different workplace. It'll be a different, the consumer will be different, will behave different, and the way we do business will all be different after this. I think everyone knows that now, but trying to figure out what are the things we do need to change and what are the best ways to do that without too many changes at one time. Trying to again, keep your leadership team, keep your staff on board with what you're trying to accomplish and base it off a lot of the things that they see, but also, what your clients' needs are also. So it's a lot of moving parts. And I do think, again, that consultants can kind of help people to take an outside look and help work with them to identify what the needs are.
Awesome, thanks. So we had come up with a list of tips that you could share with DVMs now that are working in a really successful practice. As Deb mentioned at the beginning of the call, Dr. Drake's practice is voted #1 in San Diego, 8 years running. Really, really thriving practice. And I think these are some good tips from Dr. Drake that you can go ahead and share with folks in your network if that would be helpful. So maybe you can take us through some of these.
Yeah, the owner of the practice has to have a good attitude. I mean, if you don't have a good attitude and you're a calm leader, obviously you have to have a sense of urgency of the things that need to get done. But if you can't be a good leader, it's really a tough time. If you don't have a strong culture, it's a really tough time. But there are things that you can do even now. If you don't have a great culture, like take yourself outside the practice, identify what is it you want of your culture, bring your key people in on it, and then your entire staff. And let's say, maybe we haven't been this way. Now we see the need, why we do need to be this way, and move forward. Hiring right now is tough some ways, but there's a lot of people who want jobs, but it does require most of them need training. So if you can be open to that, there's a lot of great applicants out there. Always treating your employees well and getting them to buy into your plan. So I don't just do things willy-nilly. I collect information constantly from all my key people and all my staff into what are their roadblocks to what they're trying to accomplish with taking care of our clients and our patients. Taking time to just take a breath, take yourself out for coffee and plan. I've been doing this since my very first practice a long time ago. And you really have to step outside the practice and take time to plan and see what are the issues that you need to fix. Thinking like a startup, we've already gone over that. Taking great care of your clients. I think this is another area I'm seeing veterinarians really stumble with, that we have to understand that their experience as a client is very different right now. And we need to pay attention to that. And it's not going to be perfect right now, but to continue to communicate with the clients and tell them we understand that, whether it's hot in the parking lot and we have to figure that out, whether you're going to let some people in or you're going to just have them drop off, you're going to provide cold drinks, all the things at least say, I am aware this is hard for you guys too. We put iPads in our exam rooms and are doing Zooms or FaceTimes in the room while we're doing exams to help that experience with the clients so they feel like they are part of the exam and the whole process when we're talking about what things that we want to do with their pet that day. And then again, planning for the future, knowing where we want our practice to be on the other side of this. That's kind of a little further out, but I still think we should be thinking about that. What does this look like now? And where are we headed? And what are the things that our consumers going to need? Because I do believe we're going to be in COVID for another year. So we have to plan for that. And then after that too.
Awesome. Thanks, Dr. Drake. So we had also talked about some of the KPIs you're following that you found really helpful in navigating this and making sure that your business stays strong. Don't necessarily need to go through each one of these in detail, but maybe talk about any of the key ones that you think are maybe unique or unusual.
Yeah, I was actually looking for my sheet. So once a week, I always follow my numbers. I've always followed my numbers from the get-go, but I think it's especially important right now because our revenue has been all over the place and our staffing, we've just hired so many new people because we lost some, and also our business is up 25%. So in order to keep those costs, though, somewhat in check, I'm checking on a weekly basis. Like a lot of veterinary practices, I was down 20% initially and then about even, and now I've gone up to 25% above for the past 2 months, which is, again, unprecedented, and it's required a lot of hiring to manage that. And of course, COVID requires more employees, just simply these new runner position that we have, and educating them to what are the areas, what are the steps we want them to take. I mean, these things require a lot of management skill. So here's just the things that I do follow on a weekly basis. I have my manager produce these numbers for me so that I can make sure that we're, staying within the limits of, payroll and such, making sure that those numbers are where they should be.
Awesome. And one thing you had mentioned that got my attention, Dr. Drake, is, typically as a practice owner, when you're looking at like payroll percent of revenue, you're making sure that your payroll isn't creeping up and out of control, right? But in this case, what you're looking at, if I follow correctly, is that to the extent that the payroll percent of revenue is too low because there's been such a jump in revenue, that basically tells you, A, you've got to hire, and B, your staff are almost guaranteed to be getting overworked. So maybe some bonuses and extra perks would be in order. Maybe you can talk about
that was pretty obvious, the stress involved for all my staff. And I really had a great team. I didn't have anybody leave just because. I had just 2 leave because of health reasons. But yet they were working so hard, and their lives have all changed too. So at some point that percentage was a little bit wacky, because we weren't even knowing when we should be hiring all these people. This was right off the bat. So I did go ahead and bonus staff, pretty much right away. And I'm getting ready for round 2. And there's been all this business about, should you do it if you got a PPP loan, and should you not? And I just think I'm just running business as usual. And whether or not that PPP loan works out for forgiveness or not, I'm not really worried about that. It's been an insurance policy for us that if we did get COVID in our practice, we all work so close together, it would be kind of devastating for several weeks, which would be kind of traumatic financially for us. So we are keeping that in mind. But just trying to pay attention to these numbers on a weekly basis and do the best thing by my staff.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Well, I know we covered a lot. We want to open it up for questions. And if you look at the bottom here, there's a link, and we can share that with the group as well. Basically what we have is just a simple page where you can reach out to us. Let us know if you'd like to connect. If you have questions, you want to learn more, it's geniusvets.com/vetpartners/connect. And we'll also, anyone who fills out that form, we can also follow up and share with you that culture video if you would like to check that out and see if it would add value in your work with practices.
Yeah, I don't think we described that on this call yet, Harley. So just for everyone who's questioning, I do put a lot of effort into my culture, my practice, and I think every veterinarian should. And so we did actually produce a video for Merck Pharmaceutical that their reps have used. It's basically just me kind of walking the practice through how to work on your culture and how to produce the culture that you want. And we recommend that the leadership of the practice watch it first and then share it with the whole staff. But it may be a tool that you guys enjoy and appreciate also.
Awesome. Thanks, Dr. Drake. Cool. So I guess we'll open it up for questions for the time we have remaining. And if there's anything we can't get to, happy to hear from you guys at this link or through the Vet Partners team.
Fantastic. Okay, let's hear any questions. So this is such valuable information. I'll just say that the day in the life of. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Oh, sorry. The day in the life of a regular practice during regular times is wild and crazy. But during these times, I can, it sounds even more unbelievable, and does sound very similar to a startup. It sounds like so many of the processes that you've been doing for a long time, for years, had to be really, shaken up, and it's just amazing, and in such a short amount of time. So I just wanted to
it's like the Wild West, honestly. So you guys, my practice has been impacted like in size for a long time. So like we do a tremendous amount of business in less than 3,000 square feet. I mean, a tremendous amount. So, I mean, we were already kind of to that breaking point, and now with business increased by 25%, that's a lot. And so we're using all the exam rooms for procedures and, popping in for doing blood draws, everything. And our surgery is increased by 25% also. So we've had to have more surgery time in my practice. So for me, looking into the future is I'm trying to decide, should I open this annex next door? And I'm dealing with builders and architects right now, all while this is going on, and trying to decide how much of this increase by 25% is going to continue. I don't think all of it will, for sure. I don't know what's going on. My core belief is that the pet status in the household has changed and has become higher during COVID. And I don't think that will always maintain as people get back to a really busy life, but I think it's always going to stay up somewhat. And the other thing is that my practice has increased new patients tremendously, because my biggest competitor down the street was bought by a corporate group this past year, and they've actually been sending me a bunch of clients daily. I can't imagine what their business model is that they think that's a good idea, because I hope to keep them. Especially with the corporate group being the one sending them, I have much less, desire to send them back to them. If it were an independent guy and he said, hey, I'm just having a hard time, I would probably send them back. But we're working so hard that I feel like if I'm working hard to get your clients in, I'm not anxious to send them back to you, because it's been really hard for us to increase this business. And I think we should get the benefit of that on the other side. But trying to decide, should I open this annex up, make that decision for a longer future based on what's going on right now, it's a tough call. And I'm sure there's others that are experiencing something similar to that.
Indeed. Now, it'd be really interesting to hear a follow-up, right, in 3 to 6 months, what some of your decisions were and then some of the outcomes. And so we look forward to having you come back and sharing your story. So thank you so much, Dr. Drake. Any other questions before we move forward? Okay, Dr. Drake, thank you so much. And Harley, thank you so much. It was great to hear your story, and it was such valuable information, especially for folks who haven't really worked in a practice, and to hear what's really going on. And that's such a valuable story that you shared. Thank you, and we want to have you come back. So, hello.
Thanks so much, Deb. Thanks for having us. Glad to be here.
Good. Well, thank you, Harley, and thank you, Dr. Drake. So if you have any questions beyond after this webinar wraps up, please email them to Elizabeth, which is admin@vetpartners.org. That's admin@vetpartners.org. And or you've got some further questions here with Genius Vets. It's on the slide here. Many thanks again to our sponsors. Again, we can't do many things without you. And the recording of this webinar will be up next week, so look forward to that. Stay tuned for future Vet Partners Town Hall briefs coming your way soon. And thank you all for tuning in today and for all that you do for the veterinary profession. Until next time, stay healthy, stay happy, and stay safe, my friends. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.